Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm featuring 2 meals that are perfect for feeding a lot of people on a tight budget. And one of these recipes is my new favorite meal, of which I'm so sad that it's taken me this long to discover. At the end of the video, I'm also going to be sharing a recent purchase I made with you because it's super awesome and it is the gift giving season. Today's recipes are inspired by potatoes because potatoes are super cheap this time of year and they're filling and nutritious. An Italian friend introduced this dish to me many years ago. She would have me over for dinner and make a big pot of this along with a salad and some kind of meat, and she always had a bottle of Kendall Jackson Chardonnay. I've thought of this dish many times over the years, but I never recreated it until this week. It's super simple and perfect for my channel. Basically, it's just seasoned potatoes and greens, and I think Italians usually eat it as a side dish, but you could easily make this into the main course just by adding in a protein. I wash my potatoes really good before cutting them. I want just enough water to cover the potatoes. The broth is an integral part of this dish, and you're not going to believe me at how good this tastes unless you actually try it yourself, because the only seasonings that we're going to be using is salt and garlic and pepper. I've had this bad chest cold going on 2 weeks now. I don't think it's COVID because I took one of those at-home tests and it came up negative. I think it's just a bad respiratory virus that's going around, but I know so many people are sick right now and I've just been craving real whole foods, and this is actually the second time I'm making this week. It's so delicious and satisfying when you're sick. I'm going to use 3 whole garlic cloves, and I'm not going to be chopping the garlic. I'll just use the whole cloves and they'll season our entire dish. Some of my viewers are not able to eat garlic because of some digestive issues. If you're one of those people and you want to try this, I would put the garlic in a little tea bag so you can easily pick this out before eating the dish. You'll get the nice flavor, but you won't actually be consuming garlic. Or just make sure you use really large cloves so that you can easily spot them to pick them out. I don't remember exactly what kind of greens my friend used, but I have some spinach left over, so that's what I'm going to use, and because it's spinach, I'll add that at the very end. But if you're using something like kale or Swiss chard, then I would go ahead and add it in now and let it cook together with the potatoes and garlic. I'm also going to add a generous amount of pepper. I'm using russet potatoes, which are always on sale this time of year. They don't hold up to boiling as well as some other potatoes, so they'll kind of break apart a little bit, but I like that and actually think that they work best in this recipe because you get a lot of that potato flavor into the broth. Obviously, if you want to use yellow or red potatoes, you can do that. You'll need to taste the broth to make sure it has enough salt. If you don't salt this enough, it's going to taste bland. And now that my potatoes are tender, I'll add in my greens, which in this case is spinach. I prefer my spinach just wilted, so I'll go ahead and dip this up. A lot of people don't realize how nutritious potatoes are. They contain vitamins, minerals, and fiber, and they're rich in vitamin C, and were a life-saving food source in early times because the vitamin C prevented scurvy. And because we left the potato skin on, they have more fiber than had we taken it off. If you want to, you could eat this with a fried egg on top to add some extra protein. I also like the idea of adding in a few of those frozen meatballs, either regular meatballs or vegan. You could also add in a little cream or evaporated milk if you wanted to. I just loved it just like this. It is so full of flavor and so comforting. I recommend you try this on its own before adding anything else. You're not going to believe that we got this much flavor from just the ingredients and the garlic and salt and pepper. Next, I'm making picadillo. This has been on my bucket list for a while now, and since potatoes are on sale, I thought it would be a good time to make it. I ended up making one with ground beef and one that was vegan. They're basically made the same way. It's just for the second one, I substituted a vegan ground beef. Here, I have 1 pound of ground beef, and the vegetables that you see here, I have 1 teaspoon of cumin, some chicken bouillon powder, and 2 cloves of garlic. I'm using a ground beef that's 85/15 because that's what my son picked up for me, but you can use whatever you like. Just remember that fat equals flavor, so lean meat isn't going to taste quite as good. You could also substitute ground turkey or ground chicken if you don't like beef. And if you're trying to save money, you could always use half a pound of ground beef and then just use 1 or 2 more potatoes. Some of my viewers have some tricks for extending out the ground beef in their recipes, and their family never even knows it. I'm trying to think of some of them that I've heard. Some people mix in some ground turkey in with the beef. I've also heard of people using some wheat berries or textured vegetable protein. And also I've heard of people just adding a little rice in. If you haven't spent some time reading the comments on my channel, it's definitely worth doing because there's a lot of information there. I chopped half of a small onion and added that in there first, just until it becomes translucent, and then I'll add in my chopped garlic. I noticed that there are lots of variations on this picadillo. It's a traditional dish in many Latin American countries, including Mexico and Cuba, as well as the Philippines. Ingredients vary slightly, but are very similar. I'm making a Mexican version, which typically has potatoes and carrots and some kind of tomatoes or tomato sauce. In case you missed it, I added cumin, chicken bouillon, and a little extra garlic powder, but I will put this recipe for you in the description area of my video. But there are lots of other versions that include peppers into the dish, and I noticed that there's a big variety in the types of peppers that are used. I really wanted to use green chilies in mine, but I'm making this version for my son, and he doesn't really like green chilies anyway. But I also noticed that a lot of people use green bell peppers, like in the Cuban and the Costa Rican and the Puerto Rican versions, and some people use jalapenos. So I think it's really just whatever you like or whatever you have in your house at the time. But I washed my potatoes very good and left the peel on the potatoes, and then I sliced them fairly thin so that they would cook quickly. I noticed that some people cut them in dices, and you could definitely use canned potatoes if you don't have the energy or the time to peel potatoes, but I do prefer to use fresh when I can. Plus they're super cheap right now. Another reason I like this meal is because it works for so many of my viewers. I noticed that the Philippine version uses ground beef and either potatoes or chayote squash. Chayote squash are very low in carbs, so that may be a great option for some of my viewers that are diabetic. You could also try some other low-carb vegetables like cauliflower, but I'm actually thinking the chayote would work best here. I think in my version I'm going to use some chunky tomatoes, but tomatoes are another one of those things that my son doesn't like, so I just blended those up so he'll get the flavor, but he won't have the chunks in the meal. I feel like you could add any kind of vegetable that you have on hand in here, like corn or green beans or any of that, but for my first time making this, I'm just going to try to make it as traditional as possible so that I can sample it, and then I'll have some fun with it after that. Sometimes the scent of pepper is so good and it just smells really nice in this dish. I added my carrots in towards the end just because we didn't want them to be too soft, and then after a few minutes I tested it to see if I needed to adjust the seasonings. I added a little more of the chicken bouillon and then some extra salt. I let it simmer for a while longer and tasted it, and it was so good. I was debating on whether I wanted to add in some tomato sauce. I did notice that some people add that to theirs, but I think it's completely optional whether you have it in your pantry or not. Since I already had a can in the fridge, I decided to go ahead and add about 1/4 of a can. You may want to add an entire can. I think that tasting as you go is the way to get it right for your palate. My son just happened to be home when I was cooking, and he loved this so much. He ate a huge bowl and then took leftovers for his lunch. I tried a small sample of this with a little chopped cilantro on top, and I thought it was outstanding. I couldn't wait to try a meatless version of this. I basically made it the same way with the garlic and potatoes, except instead I added a can of rotel. Again, I was wishing that I had some green chilies, but there are peppers in the rotel, so I was hoping it would kind of make up for it and be the same way. And I added some vegetable bouillon and let it cook for a while, and this meal was delicious. However, the rotel was a little too spicy for my liking. The Cuban and the Puerto Rican versions of picadillo also included olives, so I added some of these Trader Joe olives that I have, and it elevated this to a 10 for me. It was so good that I couldn't wait to eat it again for dinner, but this time I plated it in a typical Mexican style with refried beans and tortillas, and oh my gosh, this is definitely one of my new favorite meals. I'm going to add this into my weekly meal rotation. I'm already craving it again. Everything just went so well together. I hope you'll try this if you haven't already. And then I wanted to share with you guys a gift that I got because some of you may be interested in it either for yourself or for a gift for someone else. One of my sons had given me a gift card to Barnes & Noble for my birthday this summer, and I went recently to the Fashion Valley Mall in Newport Beach, which is one of the most serene and beautiful malls I've ever been to. You can actually see the ocean from the mall. Anyway, I went to the Barnes & Noble there, and they have the largest Barnes & Noble I've ever been to. It had 2 floors. I planned to look at their cookbooks, and I also wanted to check out their planners while I was there. I was surprised to see how many food-related items they had, some that would make perfect smaller gifts. They also had some food advent calendars, which if I wasn't on such a tight budget, I probably would have purchased one of these. They had one for chocolates, and they also had a popcorn one, which I thought looked really good. And they also had one for tea drinkers. I just think advent calendars are so much fun, and they can be really bonding for families. I spotted this cheese board deck that includes 50 cards for styling cheese boards, and I can think of at least a few people that this would be a great gift for. It was $20 at Barnes & Noble, but I priced this on Amazon and it was only $11.85, and I also noticed it was a bestseller. I've added this to my Amazon store just in case anyone's interested, but I also noticed that they had several options for these that looked to be popular and highly rated. One was $14 and there were like over 10,000 sales on it, and it was rated 5 stars. So I added that one to my store also. But I had my heart set on a new cookbook, and some of these entertaining style books caught my eyes. I always like to have lots of pictures in cookbooks. It was difficult to choose, but ultimately I decided on The Food Lab by Kenji Lopez Alt. He's a chef that I already follow, and this book has been widely acclaimed as being the new joy of cooking for the next generation. I know some of my viewers already watch his YouTube channel because I've chatted with a few of you on that. He won a James Beard Award for this book, and it was also voted the Cookbook of the Year by the International Association of Culinary Professionals. This book was $50 at Barnes & Noble, but I noticed that they have it for just under $35 on Amazon. This book has everything you could possibly want in a cookbook, from chopping skills to how to cook the perfect steak and everything in between. So far, I'm loving this cookbook. I think I should maybe invest in something to cover it so it doesn't end up getting dirty, because I already know how much is going to get used in my kitchen. One more thing I wanted to say before I sign out. I've started releasing some shorts lately. I have no intention of replacing my long form content with shorts. I'm simply doing it to help my channel, but I'm kind of looking at it as a way to have some extra fun and to share some things that I wouldn't normally get to share in my long form content. Anyway, that's it guys. I hope you are all well and enjoying the holiday season. Thanks so much for watching my video, and I'll see you Sunday.
Morning has broken, my windows are open. Wanna feel the wind blow through my hair. Which way do I follow? What happens tomorrow?